Let's go over today, or right now actually, the Constitutional Convention, guys. What is the Constitutional Convention? Why is it important? What was decided there? What came out of it? Well, first of all, the Constitutional Convention is the meeting place to write the new Constitution. We remember, hopefully from the last lecture, that the Articles of Confederation failed miserably due to the weakness it gave to the federal government. So here we are in Philadelphia in 1786, rebuilding a new Constitution and throwing the other one out. So the Constitutional Convention really has, I guess, three main ideas. One of them is compromise. And the first compromise we need to go over is the Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Plan. You see, New Jersey and Virginia had two different plans about how to represent the states in the new Congress, the Congress being the House of Representation and the Senate. I just gave the answer away. Let's back up a little bit. New Jersey wanted a Congress that was built on the idea of equality. New Jersey was a small state, so they wanted representation equally. One per state, two per state. So they would have as much voice as, let's say, Virginia or a larger state with more people. They didn't want to lose their voice. So that's half the plan, or half the compromise is, what do we do about these small states? On the other side of the coin, you have the Virginia Plan, a large state plan, which is representation based on population. Meaning the more human beings you have, the more citizens that you have, the more representation you're going to get in this new Congress. So both plans freak the other side out. So the Great Compromise, or the Connecticut Compromise, named after Connecticut, who brokered the deal, is the creation of a bicameral legislature, or as we say in the English language, a two-house Congress. So in the Congress today, we have a House of Representation, which is based on population. Each state gets a number of representation based on how many people live there. So I think the current number in New York is like 34, 35, 36. Alaska is 1. California is 54. And those representational numbers actually have a lot to do with the Electoral College, how we elect the president. The Senate, on the other hand, is 2 per state. So that's going to make New Jersey happy. And of course, in order to pass a law, you need both houses. So you need the small state house, the House of Representation, the Senate, and the large state house, the House of Representation. So that's the Great Compromise, the creation of a two-house Congress to make small states and large states feel welcome. That compromise leads us to the next compromise, which is the 3/5 compromise, another ugly stain on the American soul. The 3/5 compromise deals specifically with how do you get the number for population for the House of Representation. So every 10 years in this country we take what's called a census, where we count individuals in a state. We find out how many people live in New York. And once we have that number, we can figure out how many representatives New York is going to get in the House of Representation. So here's the problem. The problem is slavery. The South wants to count its slaves as human beings, as citizens per se. Even though they have no rights, they can't vote, they're enslaved human beings, the South is jumping up and down going, and this is a real person, a real citizen. Why? They want that guy to count because they know if slaves count, their numbers go up, they get more representation, and then they can protect the institution of slavery. On the other hand, the North is going, whoa, wait a minute. You can't count your slaves. That's going to give you unfair representation. Slaves should not be counted. Can you figure it out? 3/5? Disgusting. For every 5 slaves, the southern states were given 3 citizens to count towards the census. And then that population is what determined representation in the House for southern states. So the southern states really come out, I think, on top on this one. They're getting representations for people who can't vote, who have no say. And then they're going to use that representation to keep those people enslaved. It blows the mind. So, Great Compromise. Make sure you get that magic word. Say it real close. Representation. And of course, the 3/5 compromise, which is also representation based. So, we have one more compromise, my friends. This compromise is between really our 2 first political parties. The Constitution, there's 2 types of people. There's Federalists, Federalists like Alexander Hamilton, Federalists who believe in strength in federal power, in the ability to make laws like economic institutions in order to get things done. In fact, Hamilton baby, is the father of the National Bank, an enormous economic institution which is going to dictate the flow of money in the country for the beginning of our history. So we have the feds on one side, I guess that's the feds, and on the other side you have the anti-feds, like the Thomas Jeffersons of the world, the ones who remember what it was like to live like Tina Turner. The ones who still fear Ike, the ones who are still worried that a strong federal government is going to come in and is going to overtake their rights and crush them. So the anti-feds refused to sign the original Constitution. They threw the pen down. They said, no, I'm not going to do it. So the Fed said, well, what is it going to take to get you guys to sign that document? And Jefferson, even though he's not there, but the anti-Feds say, I'm not doing anything until you give me some individual freedoms that you're going to protect. So, where is it? The Bill of Rights. This is the last compromise. The Bill of Rights is a compromise between the anti-Feds and the Feds. The anti-Feds are given the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, so they can feel secure, that they have a shield, that they have protection against daddy, against the federal government. So, let's do a few of the Bill of Rights before we go. You ready? Here we go. First Amendment. You ready? Let's do it with me. Freedom of speech, religion, press, assembly, petition or protest. First Amendment, 5 fingers, 5 freedoms. Second Amendment, do it with me. Put your thumb up, your index finger out, that's 2, bang, bang. The right to bear arms, being necessary for a militia, shall not be infringed. Let's skip to 4. Fourth Amendment, roly-poly, get your 4, bend them. Open up, it's the police. This would be privacy. This is where our warrants come from, probable cause. Fifth Amendment, the right to remain silent, among other things. Eighth Amendment, chains, cruel and unusual punishment. And my favorite, well, not my favorite, but one of my favorite is the 10th Amendment. So the 10th Amendment is going to be represented by this chair. And if we put this chair down, even though you can't see it, I'm going to kick it. And that is the concept of reserved powers, the last seat in the restaurant. I told you I'd do it a million times. Federalism, our form of government, is the division of power between the feds and the states. So the 10th Amendment basically says that if it's not delegated, if it's not specifically written out in the Constitution, if we don't tell you you can do it, then it's reserved for the states. The states get to make it up. So we can take reserved powers and we can look at marriage laws. Each state has its own unique way of defining marriage and rules. We can look at, another instance might be education. Each state has its own way of funding public schools and of setting requirements. Elections. Each state has its own way of ballots and running elections. These are reserved powers. So delegated, war, taxes, interstate commerce. Reserved, state power, marriage, elections. The ones that overlap are called concurrent. Can you think of something that the state of New York can do in your paycheck and the federal government can do? You got it, taxes. So, once again, the Constitutional Convention, let's not forget what our purpose was here today. The Constitutional Convention is where we what? Write the new Constitution after the failure of the Articles. 2 compromises. The Great Compromise created a, what's that? What do you say? A 2-house Congress or a bicameral legislature. House of Representation based on population, and a Senate, 2 per state. The last compromise is between the feds, the strong guys, and the anti-feds, the Tina Turners of the world. The compromise, of course, is the Bill of Rights. So there you go, guys. The Constitutional Convention is what got us our flexible Constitution. It's what got us our form of representation, our form of federalism, and we're going to say that's all, folks. So have a bright, lovely day, and we'll see you soon.